What if I told you that the very thing most people believe will make them financially secure could actually be holding them back? Think about the advice we've all heard since childhood. Save your money, build a bigger bank balance, avoid risk, keep cash for a rainy day. On the surface, it sounds like perfect financial wisdom, and to some extent, it is. Saving money is an important habit, but there's a problem when saving becomes your entire financial strategy. Imagine two people who graduate at the same age, earn similar salaries, and both decide to put away $500 every month. 30 years later, one is still worried about retirement, while the other has accumulated enough wealth to have genuine financial freedom. Same income, same discipline, same monthly contribution. Completely different outcomes. Why? Because one person learned a lesson that many people never discover. Saving money and building wealth are not the same thing. The truth is that money sitting still becomes weaker over time. Most people think their biggest financial enemy is debt. Others think it's taxes. But one of the most dangerous threats to your wealth is something you rarely notice day to day. It's inflation. Inflation is like a silent leak in your financial bucket. Every year, prices slowly rise. Groceries cost more, rent costs more, cars cost more, education costs more, vacations cost more. The money in your bank account may look exactly the same, but what that money can buy gradually shrinks. Imagine walking into a grocery store 10 years ago with $100. Now imagine taking that same $100 into a grocery store today. You're likely leaving with fewer items in your cart. Your money didn't disappear, its purchasing power did. That's why simply accumulating cash isn't enough. If your money grows slower than inflation, you're actually moving backward financially, even when your account balance is increasing. And that's the trap millions of people fall into. They spend years focusing on saving while completely ignoring growth. They celebrate reaching $10,000, then $20,000, then $50,000 in cash without realizing that inflation is quietly taking a bite out of those savings every single year. The goal isn't to have money sitting around forever. The goal is to make money work for you. That's the difference between people who spend decades working for money and people whose money eventually starts working for them. Let's look at a simple example. Meet Sarah and Mike. Sarah is responsible. She avoids unnecessary spending, rarely eats out, and diligently saves $500 every month into a savings account, earning around 2% annually. Every time she checks her balance, she feels proud because the number keeps going up. Mike is also responsible. He saves the same $500 every month. The difference is that after building an emergency fund, he starts investing those savings into a diversified ETF, tracking the overall stock market. He doesn't try to pick winning stocks. He doesn't chase trends. He simply invests consistently month after month. Fast forward 30 years. Sarah has contributed $180,000 of her own money and ends up with roughly $245,000. That's a meaningful amount of money. But Mike also contributed $180,000. Because his investments earned an average return closer to 8%, his portfolio grows to more than $700,000. That's nearly 3 times more wealth. Nothing magical happened. Mike didn't earn a higher salary, he didn't win the lottery, he didn't discover a secret investment strategy. He simply allowed compounding to work. Compounding is one of the most powerful forces in personal finance. It happens when your money earns returns, and those returns start earning returns too. Think of it like planting a tree. In the beginning, growth seems slow. A small sapling doesn't look impressive, but over time, that tree grows larger and produces more branches. Then, those branches produce even more growth. Eventually, the growth becomes dramatic. Investing works the same way. The first few years often feel boring. The real magic happens later. Unfortunately, many people never experience that magic because they're too focused on protecting every dollar instead of growing it. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine every dollar you save is an employee. If that employee sits in a savings account earning very little, it barely works. But if that employee is invested in productive assets, it starts generating value. Then it hires additional employees through compounding. Soon, your money begins creating more money. That's how wealth is built. Not by endlessly storing cash, but by putting capital to work. This is why wealthy individuals focus on owning assets. Stocks, businesses, real estate, and other productive investments create growth. Cash provides security, but assets create wealth. Both have a role. The mistake is treating them as if they're equally powerful over the long term. One reason so many people fall into the saving trap is because cash feels safe. When the stock market drops, your savings account balance doesn't suddenly decline. There's comfort in certainty. But sometimes what feels safest today can be riskier tomorrow. Imagine someone who saved aggressively from 1995 until today and never invested a single dollar. They may have accumulated a respectable amount of cash, but they would have missed decades of economic growth, business innovation, and market appreciation. During that same period, companies transformed entire industries. Technology changed the world. Productivity increased. Investors who owned a tiny piece of those businesses benefited from that growth. Savers largely watched from the sidelines. Another mistake people make is waiting for the perfect moment to invest. They tell themselves they'll start when the market crashes, when interest rates fall, when inflation disappears, or when the economy becomes more predictable. The problem is that the future is never perfectly clear. There is always uncertainty. If you wait for the perfect time, you may end up waiting forever. History shows that time in the market is usually more important than timing the market. Consistent investing often beats trying to predict every market move. There's also a psychological reason people oversave. We tend to focus on avoiding losses more than achieving gains. Losing $100 feels worse than the pleasure of gaining $100. Because of this, many people keep excessive amounts of cash even when they know inflation is reducing its value. They choose certainty over opportunity. Yet building wealth requires balancing security and growth. You don't need to invest every dollar. That's why financial experts often recommend maintaining an emergency fund covering 3 to 6 months of expenses. That cash acts as a financial cushion for unexpected events. Beyond that, excess savings can often be invested according to your goals and risk tolerance. Think of your emergency fund as a seatbelt. You wear a seatbelt for protection, but you don't spend your entire life sitting in a parked car. Eventually, you need to move forward. The same principle applies to money. Protection matters, but growth matters too. If all you ever do is protect your money, you may never give it the opportunity to create the future you want. For Canadian investors, this lesson becomes even more important because there are powerful tools available that many people underuse. Accounts such as a TFSA and RRSP can significantly improve long-term outcomes. A TFSA allows investments to grow tax-free, meaning capital gains, dividends, and future growth can potentially be withdrawn without additional tax. An RRSP provides tax advantages that can help reduce taxable income while allowing investments to compound over time. Yet many Canadians use these accounts primarily as savings vehicles rather than investment vehicles. They hold large amounts of cash inside them and miss much of the benefit these accounts were designed to provide. Consider two people who each contribute the same amount to a TFSA every year. One keeps everything in cash, earning minimal interest. The other invests in diversified ETFs and stays invested for decades. The difference in outcomes can be enormous. Again, the key isn't simply saving. The key is what happens after the money is saved. This brings us to the 5 biggest ways saving too much can make you poor. Number 1, keeping excessive cash beyond your emergency fund. Number 2, allowing fear to prevent investing. Number 3, waiting endlessly for the perfect market conditions. Number 4, failing to take advantage of tax-efficient investment accounts. And number 5, believing that wealth comes from accumulation alone rather than ownership of productive assets. The wealthiest people understand a simple principle. Money is a tool. Tools are meant to be used. Imagine buying the world's best hammer and locking it in a display case forever. It might remain pristine, but it would never build anything. Money works the same way. If it never leaves the sidelines, it never gets the chance to build wealth. That doesn't mean taking reckless risks. It means using a thoughtful strategy that combines saving, investing, patience, and discipline. The goal is not to gamble. The goal is to participate in long-term economic growth. So what should you do starting today? First, build an emergency fund if you don't already have one. Financial stability comes before investing. Second, eliminate high-interest debt, especially credit card debt. Few investments can consistently outperform the interest rates charged by those debts. Third, begin investing regularly, even if the amount feels small. Remember, consistency matters more than perfection. Fourth, automate the process. When investing becomes automatic, you remove emotions and excuses from the equation. Fifth, stay patient. Wealth creation is usually slow before it becomes obvious. Many people underestimate what they can achieve in 20 or 30 years because they focus only on the next few months. The greatest advantage ordinary investors have isn't intelligence, luck, or special knowledge. It's time. The longer your money compounds, the harder it works for you. Imagine meeting your future self 30 years from now. Which version would you rather become? The person who spent decades watching cash slowly lose purchasing power, or the person who used saving as a foundation for investing and wealth creation? The decisions you make today can determine which future becomes reality. Saving money is a great habit. Everyone should save, but saving alone is not enough. If all your money does is sit in a bank account, inflation becomes an invisible partner taking a share of your wealth every year. The real goal isn't to save money forever. The real goal is to transform savings into assets that grow, compound, and eventually create financial freedom. That's when money stops being something you constantly chase and starts becoming something that works alongside you. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and share Wealth Narrate with someone who thinks a savings account is the only path to financial security. And let me know in the comments, what's the biggest lesson you've learned about saving or investing? Thanks for watching, and remember, don't just save your money, teach it how to work for you.